Welcome to Glass Half Full with Leslie Krongold. She shares her stories, experiences, and knowledge of living and coping with a chronic health condition. Learn about tools and resources and hear inspirational interviews that help you to live a life filled with quality and dignity. With 2 decades of support group leadership, Leslie's ready to help you make lemonade out of life's lemons. Are you ready?
Yesterday was Earth Day, and tomorrow is Arbor Day. Did you realize that? Arbor Day is a holiday when people are encouraged to plant trees. It started in 1872 with a man named J. Sterling Morton in Nebraska when he proposed the tree planting holidays, and I guess it took off. My love of trees has grown over the last few years. I had my first forest bathing experience. I virtually met Verla Fortier, who wrote a book about the healing benefits of trees. I started practicing bhagwa meditation, which involves walking around a tree. And for the past 6 weeks, the trees around my neighborhood represent the greater world outside of my home. On our daily walks, I've grown to really love a few specific trees, and I'm motivated to learn more about different types of trees. Last month, you met Verla in the podcast episode, Coping with Coronavirus, Trees, Yoga, and Essential Oils. Today, you'll learn more about her journey to wellness. Verla lives in Canada and spent her professional career as a nurse. I asked her what led her to become a nurse.
Probably started when I was in high school. My dad was diagnosed with MS and quite quickly moved from 1 cane to 2 canes to then a wheelchair. And he was just such a lovely guy that I wanted to be around him and help him. My mom taught me how to transfer him, from the back, things like that. And, I would get him up and then brace his knees against mine and push his knees back so he could stand up and then get him into the chair. And then we'd laugh. And I remember him just swallowing, taking some time and then saying, you did a great job there. Good for you. And then giving me a big smile. And that was so nice. And that happened so often whenever I helped him with anything. And it was such a positive it was a natural for me to go into nursing. And my mom was the same way. So there was 3 of us girls, the whole family. We all did very well with his MS, and we were happy to have him. Like a little hot shot, I started out in the hospitals and the technical side of things in intensive care and all that. And then quite soon I went over to India and found out that healthcare was more about, public health and shelter and food and water. So when I came, I was much more interested in primary care. So I don't know how things are set up. Like in Canada, the government pays for the health care. So all the money goes to hospitals, and then they're very well funded. And then the rest of it goes to doctors' offices. So my interest was in getting more of that money and resources back into the community where we all are and sort of enriching that.
Verla moved up the corporate ladder in her career and also taught at a university. I asked her when her health took a downward turn.
To tell you the truth, I was not really aware of how I was feeling for a very long time. I remember that we were this happy little family, this nuclear family, mom, dad, and 2 little boys in large home in suburbia. And then one day my ex-husband walked out the door and I had 2 little kids. And I knew that I needed to keep them in their home and in their community. So I walked over next door to the university and picked up an additional full-time position there. So I loved it. I mean, I loved all the work and looking after the kids, but I was just looking after everybody else's needs for 10 or 15 years, I think. And if I had symptoms, I didn't do anything but work and look after the kids and sleep. And it really wasn't until they were university age that I just felt profoundly tired. And I just thought, I was 63. I thought I'm just aging, and I found it difficult to walk, but I always had. But when I went to the gym, that helped. And but I wasn't able. I was 63, so I really wasn't able to do my work anymore at the university. I just felt too tired, and so I thought, I think I'll just go home to my town. So I retired early, and I thought, I just can't wait to get there. I was thinking of all these things I would do: swim in the lake and lie in the warm white sand and walk in the woods. And I was really looking forward to it. And then that's when I got my diagnosis. I was diagnosed with systemic lupus, and my blood work showed that I was on the serious side of that. And when I saw my doctor, I was just going in for a routine. I had this rash on my face, and but then long time, and she kept finding more rashes that I'd ignored, and then she found big bald patches that I'd been covering up and ignoring too on the top of my head. And then she asked me how was my joints and nerve pain, and I guess, yes, I had that. And then she reached for my hands, and she said, we'll do biopsy blood work, but we're looking at systemic lupus. And she said, and stay out of the sun because that could symptoms. So at that moment, I was just... felt like all my dreams of retirement were shattered, right? Yeah, but go home. Yeah, I did go home, and then I stayed inside. I was diagnosed with systemic lupus, and my blood work showed that I was on the, the serious side of that. And when I saw my doctor, I was just going in for a routine. I had this rash on my face, and but then long time, and she kept finding more rashes that I'd ignored, and then she found big bald patches that I'd been covering up and ignoring too on the top of my head. And then she asked me how was my joints and nerve pain, and I guess, yes, I had that. And then she reached for my hands, and she said, we'll do biopsy blood work, but we're looking at systemic lupus. And she said, and stay out of the sun because that could symptoms. So at that moment, I was just... felt like all my dreams of retirement were shattered, right? Yeah, but go home. Yeah, I did go home, and then I stayed inside.
Having read Verla's book, I knew there was a happy ending. I asked her how she came around to taking a chance and not following the doctor's orders. What convinced her that the outdoors had something healing to offer her?
Remember the day, Leslie, I was just lying in bed, scrolling through. I joined every online lupus support group I could. And I was, I was so used to leading them that I wasn't even used to being, so I didn't even comment or anything. I just scrolled. And people were talking this one day about how we were all inside feeling like vampires and we had to avoid the sun because they do tell lupus patients that. And then there was this one healthy-looking person, pretty healthy, who had lupus, and she said, "On going outside, so far so good." I put on my hat and sunscreen, and I thought, what? And by this time, I really didn't care anymore. I thought, I don't even care if I get it, if I damage my DNA or whatever it is, I'm going to go. So I just was angry. It was high noon. I grabbed my hat and slapped on a bit of sunscreen and headed out. I didn't care. And I was walking for about 5 minutes, and I started to just feel this relief. I tell the kids it was like in the Pac-Man game where you die and you get a new life. I was just like powered up. And I mean, it just didn't even feel real. And I thought, what? First of all, I didn't want to go in again. And then when I finally got in, I remembered I had a bunch of nursing research skills, and why anything in the universities that's peer-reviewed on trees or whatever. So that's when I started doing that, and I kept going out regularly, and then I just devoured the research. The first piece of research I came upon was Gregory Bratman at Stanford University, and they were defining their terms. And they were saying, we're going to look at this particular kind of thinking, and it's this thing called negative rumination, and it's the kind of thinking that goes, what if I didn't get this disease? If only there weren't an epidemic. Why is my body breaking down? Why is this pandemic happening? Why do I have to be inside? Those kinds of questions. And apparently, particular kind of thinking that's just the brain going haywire. And they were tracking this. And they said they wanted to know what happened if you go outside. So they got a group and they put them in built settings along a city street with just, traffic and cement. And then they put another group outside in around grass, trees, and shrubs in an urban environment. And they found the people that were in the grass, trees, and shrubs, just looking out on the San Francisco Bay Area, that they did not have that broken record thinking. It did not go to that part of the brain that I call the heartbreak hotel part of the brain. It just did not happen. Whereas the people that were outside in the city streets, that broken record thinking, which we all have to some extent, right? It was what I liked as a nurse is that they measured that part of the brain. They measured the blood flow that went there, and when that blood flow goes there, that's when the thinking is activated. But it didn't. So that I loved. And then those same researchers took it further. And they said, if this is happening with them, that when we go outside, we pay attention differently. We softly focus on all kinds of things. Our eyes wander, and that gives us our brain a break. And when it's getting a break, it's resting, and that's what we need so that we don't get that cognitive decline. If we've got those thoughts circling around in our heads all the time, the brain gets no rest, and that leads to loss of short and long-term memory, loss of ability to concentrate, loss of ability to problem solve. And I think we all know this. Like when we're worried about stuff, we forget, we're not paying attention, and just by going outside, you don't have to meditate or anything. This just happens. And so what they showed in the restoration theory, it's a real thing. And when we go outside, our brain rests, revives, and it improves our short and long-term memory, our ability to concentrate, problem solve, and learn new things. And so that to me was huge because I was worried about dementia. My mom had it. And it's that kind of thinking where you look back and you feel embarrassed. And this was a gift.
I encourage you to read Verla's book, which you'll find a link to on the Glass Half Full webpage. She did a lot more research about the healing benefits of trees and green space. Earlier this year, I signed up for a class offered at our local Parks and Recreation Center called Bodhi Meditation. I've never heard of this type of meditation, but it sounded intriguing. The practice essentially includes a circular walking around a potted tree, alternating hand gestures, and then there's a seated guided meditation. It was both energizing and relaxing. Unfortunately, the class stopped meeting in early March due to the coronavirus. I contacted the instructor, Katherine Chen, to ask her a few questions. The version of this meditation that Katherine teaches is named Bodhi Meditation because the leader of the organization is called Grandmaster Jin Bodhi, yet the practice is called energy bhagwa.
Actually, bhagwa is, they all starting from Tao. Tao permitted energy bhagwa. So energy bhagwa and the regular bhagwa, the same. However, there's some development, they aim differently. For example, energy bhagwa has been benefit a lot of people to improve their health, physical health and mental health in many ways around the world. But a lot of different practice is aiming different, because some people learning other practice, they have different goal. For us, our mission is to impart this Bodhi meditation technique and to help others to eventually improve their health and improve their happiness.
And so, what is the role of trees in the practice of, an energy bhagwa practice?
When we practice energy bhagwa, it's actually is the philosophy of Tao with the yin and yang. Is the energy that of energy in our life, and it's also not the energy itself only, it's also the compassion towards yourself, compassion towards others. So when you practice energy bhagwa, is that you are actually practice that with the nature. You are kind of connect with the future, and then you through the practice that kind of create a peaceful and very calm mind, and that would benefit yourself physically at the same time.
And so when we did it in class, because the weather wasn't good, you would always bring a potted tree. What was your intention? Have you ever done it without a tree indoors, or do you always, bring some sort of potted tree inside?
We can see if two different aspects. For example, whenever we go to the nature, whenever we go outdoor, we see green, we see the tree, we see the flower, the ocean, the mountain, that make people feel energetic, feel good, and that kind of atmosphere, and also the element of the future, the nature, it's help us. So when we doing energy bhagwa, we are feeling that we are join the nature, and we also have the sense of connection with the nature. And we do have the people in occasion, for example, they travel to other country, they of course couldn't have a good tree that they choose to practice. So a lot of them might be able to just do a few gestures in the hotel room, but in the way they practice with the guided meditation, and then guided the way like when I was practicing with you guys. The possible occasion that people don't have a tree, but they can still practice. It's first of all is the matter of the mind and the nature and how you practice, because meditation, energy bhagwa, a thing as walking meditation is a state of meditation. So when you're practicing it, if you don't have a tree, you have another way to practice, but have a tree is preferable. I would put that way.
Well, it was definitely a nice addition. To learn more about Bodhi Meditation, there is a link to a YouTube video on the Glass Half Full website. And I've also listed a few smartphone apps related to trees, many of which Verla mentions in her book. Although many of us are still staying home and taking all necessary health precautions, we still may have the opportunity to walk in green space around our neighborhoods. Of course, this may not be possible for everyone. If you live in an apartment building, maybe you want to avoid elevators and being around people. But there are studies that just looking outside your window at nature, or even a photograph of nature, can have a dramatic impact on your physical and mental well-being. I invite you to be more intentional to make the time for this.
Thank you for listening to Glass Half Full. Leslie invites you to leave a rating and review on iTunes. This helps spread the word to others dealing with chronic health issues. For show notes, updates, and more, visit the website glasshalffull.online. glasshalffull.online.